What up, sheet talkers? How's it going? What's up, Alex?
Hello.
Hey, so I hope everyone has had a beautiful Thursday. Today, my guest host is my favorite oldest son, Alex. Thanks for being on here, Sonner.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So, a question that I ask everybody, and of course, I have to ask you, are you really into true crime, or is it because you have a crime junkie mom and a crime junkie girlfriend?
Yes, we'll go with yes.
Yes
Uh,
to both.
I actually like it's gotten to that point to where I watch it so much where now I kind of like it. Like I watched the full Night Stalker documentary and I was like, "Oh wow, what? He's crazy." And I didn't think I was gonna watch it. And I watched the whole thing of that, and then I watched the full Cecil Hotel episode. Watched
What'd you
that or
think?
the
Okay,
full
what'd you think about the
series.
Cecil Hotel? What'd you? Is it the Lisa Lamb one that you're talking about?
Yeah, the lady with the water cooler thing.
Were you satisfied with what they think that it was just because of her meds, or do you think it was something more paranormal than that?
Yeah, I it had to be something. She was it might have been a combination of multiple things that maybe she brought something to her. I don't know. That one was a mystery. And like I was at first because they kept talking about Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, like I was talking about. Like I was like, oh, maybe it was him, maybe he did it, but
No, it was
he
way
wasn't
before her
missing.
time.
Yeah, that's what I was also gonna say. But I don't know. It could have been on a point to where the hotel was pretty messed up in the place and where it's at, and then
Well, I
like
mean, do you ever? Okay, because you were down on Skid Row. Do you ever
mm,
remember seeing the hotel?
I remember seeing a lot of the buildings, and I looked through a lot of my California photos to see if I had them, if I had anything like that. But I think I remember the biggest memory I have of hearing anything about the Cecil Hotel was Beatriz. She said down there's a hotel and there's something happened. Or she told me something about it, and I don't
She gave you a
remember
little bit of
completely.
history, but you're
Yeah,
probably talking and not listening.
well, I was watching all the homeless people. That's kind of where we were at, because like, and I think I was pretty enamored with like everybody who was there, the kind of people that were there, and I was kind of watching over Cade because he tends to wander.
Yeah,
And
well,
so
it's
I
normal.
was like,
It's part
Cade,
of
stay in
it.
line, stay in line.
So anyway, okay, so today we're gonna be talking about a crazy case, and y'all know that wait, before we hold on, let me backtrack, okay? Hit the hearts, hit the likes, hit the shares, and comment because we're doing a giveaway today. Okay. And I'm going to be giving away a custom made Sandy Talk sheet pen. And y'all, these write so cool, so awesome. So if you like pens like I do, you're gonna love this one. Hey
I
Sean,
got
how are
my
you
cheat
this
pen.
evening? Julia Page, we looked up the streets after we watched the doc. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, to see if you guys were there.
and yeah, we were on the map actually. Hi, Rain.
What up,
Um,
Rain Rodriguez?
we were on the maps actually, and I was telling her where our the health, not the health center, the community clinic was where we were at,
Uh-huh.
and it was maybe like we were
2 inches
here on the
away.
map, and yeah, it was maybe like a block and a half this way. And that route that we were taking through Skid Row was probably going in the range over here. We were somewhere close, but it was a little too far from where
Hi,
we were
Sylvia
going.
Jennings. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Okay, so like I was saying, you guys know that I'm enjoying switching things up this season. And today, well, if you saw the promo, we're going to be covering um one of the most not okay, one of my most memorable snaps. There, okay. Have y'all ever watched Snapped? I need y'all to answer that in the comments if y'all have ever watched it. This is like one of my biggest guilty pleasures that I love to be watching because sometimes I'm like, oh, I get it. I get why you snapped. Like, totally deserved it. Anyway, this case is not that type of case though. But just for warning purposes, we don't encourage people snapping. We definitely need you to seek counseling if you have snapping thoughts. But some of these episodes, these people were not warned.
And
So,
if you have snapped, please be sure to step forward.
all right. If you have snap, please put that in the comments. We want to hear your story. Oh, and look, my husband has tuned in to win the pin.
The assistants
And
don't
I
win
am going to write
pins.
all these names down, okay? So, anyway, if you aren't familiar with the Snap series, it's about average women who snap one day. They kill for life insurance. Everybody's killed for life insurance for the longest times. Infidelity, revenge, years of abuse, and whatever else random reason. But before we get started, I want to share with you one story about the time that I had a clear understanding of why people snap. Okay. So picture this. It was the winter of 2012, and I was down in Mississippi for a training. The company I was with at the time basically paired you with a stranger for a week of training. And I think back now and I'm like, well, that's kind of whack. Like, I don't know anything about this person that I'm about to share a room with. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy now that I think about it. Anyway, so the lady that I had to share the room with, she was nice and she was quirky, kind of weird ish, but she was nice. So one day we were assigned some homework, and some of the people took it seriously. Some of us drank and we kind of studied. And since we had class the next day, we had to call it early, and we went to bed. So there I was sleeping away, and you know when it's the good sleep, like when you're probably drooling. I wasn't drooling. I don't drool. But anyway, I was asleep and I was dreaming. And I'm not even kidding you. I'm not even kidding you. This alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, well, at first I wake up and I don't realize that it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I just went to sleep and I'm already waking up. And so I look over at her and I'm like, because she's turning on lights and everything, getting out her laptop. I'm like, what time is it? And she's like, oh, it's 3 in the morning. And I'm like, what the are you kidding me right now? So anyway, she pulls out her laptop and she starts working on this homework assignment. And I'm just stewing. Like I'm just I am just getting madder and angrier by the second. Anyway, I'm tossing and turning. So I get up and I go lay on the little couch. And that is the most uncomfortable couch ever. And anyway, she sees that I'm just angry. So she decides, oh, I'm going to go ahead and grab my stuff and go down to the lobby. So I toss and I turn and I get up and I get dressed. And then I go down to the lobby and everybody's like, hey, Sandy, hey, Sandy. And I've been fine and cheerful every single day. This girl comes up to me. She's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, get out of my way. I'm not the best morning person when I'm rudely woken up. Anyway, so I tell her about my roommate waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I tell her that had I been a murderer, I probably would have murdered her that night because that was just the rudest thing ever. But anyway, so my roommate moved out that night and I ended up having the room to myself so I guess she felt that I was super angry. Anyway, so that was my I almost snapped moment. So
I
have you
honestly
had
like
an almost snap moment, Sunner?
yeah, that retreat that I was sent on for church. We
What? You
had
never
to,
told me this.
yeah, I was crying for the most of the part. Because I was like, oh, I'm reading all these letters from my family and stuff. I'm not gonna think about murder in church, but I was.
That's
Um,
lovely. What happened?
so we were bunking with three people. All the girls had three roommates. The guys had three roommates. We shared it was like a half room split with the restroom, and then there was another guy's room on the other side. The two guys on the other side, were fine, completely fine. You know, they were really cool. We hit it off. They were actually, one was from Leveland, the other one was from Snyder, I think, some church in Snyder. And then the guy who I shared a room with was from Littlefield, and like he was the most conceited person. Like, and I thought I talked about myself a lot, but this kid was looking at himself in the mirror, flexing his arms, looking at himself. He thought he was cute. And I was like, hey man, it's time to go to bed, man. I'm tired. And he goes, yeah, go ahead, go to bed. I'll be up for a little while. And we had to get our phones taken away. He had snuck one in his backpack and he's on the phone all night with this girl talking. And I was like,
Oh,
dude, you gotta be quiet. And he's like, no, it's fine. Just don't snitch. I was like, I'm not a snitch, bro. You just gotta go to bed. He was up until 2 in the morning
Hi,
and we had to get up.
Anita.
Anita, we had to get up at 6 the next morning, and I'm here listening to this dude's conversation about his girlfriend until 2 in the morning, and I'm just like, please, dude, go to bed.
Well, that's an epic moment when you're going to snap at a church retreat.
Yeah, maybe
Anyway,
God would have forgiven me.
okay. So we're going to jump into this because this story, y'all, I'm telling you, when I tell you that it's one of the most memorable, I promise you're going to want to watch it. Okay. So write this down. It is season 26, episode 1 of Snapped. And I think it's titled Catherine Briggs or Katie Briggs, one of those. But are you ready to jump into this, Thunder?
I'm ready.
Okay. So here we go. Ryan Sullivan was born in 1984 in Michigan. Ryan's father and grandfather served in the military. Hold on, I just got way ahead of myself. Let me go back. I probably drank too much wine. Anyway, so this case takes place in Killeen, Texas in 2008. So it starts out, Army officials are called and they're requesting a welfare check on 24-year-old Staff Sergeant Ryan Sullivan. And they're like, it's not like him to miss coming into work. He's always on time. And if he is going to miss, he calls. So by all accounts, good, punctual, straight guy. So supervisor meets the police at his off-base apartments. And when they get a hold of the apartment manager, they find a deceased male. Julia says she's never watched Snapped. Okay, because once you start, you can't stop, Julia. So Ryan, who is the owner of this apartment, was born in 84. He's from Michigan, and he's stationed in Fort Hood for the time being. His grandfather and father both served in the military. So basically, Ryan knew that at a young age, he was going to serve his country. So he was described, by all accounts, as a guy with a big heart and always helping others. In the Army, he was a great hand-to-hand combat. And he also led his soldiers in combat while he was deployed to Iraq.
He was the top of his unit.
Yeah. And so like this guy is one of those where everybody described him as like a good guy all around. Like no one had any complaints about him. He was a great leader, great guy. So on his off time while he was deployed, Ryan liked to go online and meet ladies. So one of the ladies he met online was a young woman who lived in Ohio and was a model. I mean, she's got it all, right? Because when you picture a model, I don't know. What do we picture? What do we picture? Victoria's Secret models? I don't know.
Victoria's Secret, anybody who's on the magazine, Calvin Klein, those kinds of like perfect shape, and they've got they're on the billboards. Those kind of people.
Right. So anyway, let's stop there for a second because my brain is like, what's a model doing online looking for men? Okay, that's just where my brain goes. I mean, I guess I'm cynical because I'm like, no. Anyway, Ryan is not cynical because he continues to believe her, and she tells him that her name is Marissa, and she starts sending him lots of photos from her recent modeling shoots. So of course, I mean, okay, he's a lonely man, probably hasn't seen a lot of action. I mean, he's probably seen action in the field, just not a lot of action in his tent. I mean, I don't know what these people be doing. But anyway, so they start corresponding, they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. No, just kidding. They don't live happily ever after. Spoiler alert, okay? So anyway, he gets back to the U.S. From his deployment, and he goes to Cincinnati to meet Marissa. So Marissa opens the door, and lo and behold, Sandy was right. She does not resemble any of her online photos. And according to a reporter that was interviewed, Marissa did not walk like a model, sit like a model, cross her legs like a model, or sit up straight like a model. She was not 5'7", like she had said. She was actually 5'3" and heavy set. But before you come at me, bruh, let me just tell you, I'm just telling you the facts of the story. I'm not telling you anything that I'm making up. She was 5'7", and what she had said, but she ended up being 5'3". Okay. So she tells Ryan, because Ryan's in shock. He's like, whoa, you don't look like the same person.
Yeah.
she tells Ryan that she is the girl from the photographs, but that she injured or maybe broke her back and she shrunk 3 inches and gained 50 pounds.
She had claimed that she had suffered a back injury and that they had to shave down the parts of her back where they had where her injury had been, and she had shrunk 4 inches. And then after being in recovery and being in all that pain, she put on 50 pounds. But by the looks of it, I mean, she might have put on quite a few more than 50 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, they do, and I did have pictures, but I forgot to upload them to my computer, so I don't have pictures. But anyway, so y'all can watch it on the show. But anyway, so she goes on to tell him that they had to remove the portion from her spine. And I'm not a doctor. I know that y'all think that I might be, but I don't know if that's actually like, is that a thing where you can remove 3 inches from your back to fuse it back together? Is that possible? Like, I feel like you'd be paralyzed. But
Well,
what do I know?
you've got so much nerve back there that, I mean, if you were to remove something like that, you could lose control of your arms, your legs, or I mean, yeah, like you said, you'd be paralyzed if not dead. Because if you can't
So
just remove segment chunks like that.
Chon agrees with me and he said, not so. So anyway, um, Ryan is, I don't know, Ryan believes all of this. I mean,
He's
me
for the
personally, we'd have
brave.
pumped the brakes and I'd been like, look, girl, that's a great story, Paul Bunyan with your tall tales. But I'm gonna go ahead and take my flowers that I arrived here with, and I'm gonna go ahead and head on back out of here. But anyway, no, 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 not Ryan. Um, Ryan decides to accept her because he said they've built a relationship in these 5 years, and I'm not in 5 years, in this 1 year, and they're going to make it work. And so, of course, she's giddy and she's like, "Oh gosh, I've got to tell you one more thing. Um, my name's not Marissa. That's actually my professional model name. My real name is Katie Briggs." And so, yet again, Ryan doesn't run the opposite way. He says, "Okay, Katie, I'll embrace that." Y'all, I'm not even kidding. Like, these are way too many lies for me. This is way too
Yeah.
many red flags. Like, I can't even handle all of this.
What
Now,
I
if you
got
just
to
said,
that,
what?
sorry, I got to
No, go
that
ahead.
portion in the like I was just watching it. I'm sitting in my office and I'm thinking about this, right? So I met a girl online. I've met a supermodel on top of that. She's sending me all these recent shoot photos and she's just kind of reeling it in. I come back from a deployment. I'm open the door to what I thought was supposed to be a 10. I get a 2.5. And then so that's like the biggest lie on top of that. And then she tells me that that's not even her real name. And I've known her by Marissa for my 10-month stint of the rest of my deployment in which I've known you. And then you're like, oh, by the way, don't, this is not my name. I'm not actually a model. And I personally, I was just like, okay, let's head back to
I
Iraq or
mean,
something.
they have a whole show based on this. It's called Catfish. She straight up catfished him. But I guess Ryan's just a really great guy and was like, you know what? No worries. No worries. Look, Julia's like, dang, at 2.5. I don't know. I just feel like based on her lies, I don't even know if she's on the charts. Just, because personality and looks, everything, it's all encompassing, and that's what makes your number higher.
I
Whatever.
mean, if I'm being honest, 2.5 was being kind of nice.
So anyway, I can't with all these lies, but maybe other people can. So anyway, Katie was born in Cincinnati, and after her modeling career was over, she started working for the IRS as a data transcriber. Katie's described as a social butterfly, always happy, always loud, and well liked. So, where I feel like this snapped case didn't do its job was you should have asked these friends, was Katie indeed a model in her past life? If you were her friends, you would know that she'd have been a model and they would have said, yeah, she was, but they didn't ask that. And I'm kind of disappointed. I'm going to email the writers about that. So anyway, let's go back to this.
Where did
Just as their relationship starts growing and getting stronger, Ryan gets news that he's deploying to Iraq again. And in order to have a little bit more time together before his deployment, Ryan invites Katie to move to Texas. And of course, Katie jumps at the chance. She transfers to the IRS office in Austin, which is only an hour away from their apartment in Killeen. Chon said she was a one. And Julia says, if you're desperate enough, I guess a little lie isn't too hard to look past. A little lie.
That's
Like,
not a
okay,
little lie.
so if you said, hey, my name's really not Marissa, but everything else was true, it's a little lie. Like, I get it. You're trying to protect yourself online. A little lie. But, oh, girl went all the way. She went all the way with this lie. So
Changed her
anyway,
name, changed her face, changed her
changed
size.
her size, her stature, her job.
The way she
Anyway,
walks.
so Ryan leaves for his deployment in October 2006, and he comes back home January 2008. So he's looking forward to the rest of their life together when he gets back, but that would not happen because 9 months after he came home, he was found deceased in his apartment. He had been stabbed 35 times. And you guys know when it's a stabbing that's a multiple stab wound, it's a personal thing. It's, it's not just a stranger coming and slitting your throat. This is personal. So, the police find that Katie Briggs is also listed on the lease. So they kind of start worrying, like, hopefully she's not a victim. Let's try to see if we can get a hold of her. And they call the number that she has listed on the lease, and she answers. And she's down in Austin working. And they say, hey, well, can you come to the police department? And she doesn't ask why. She comes in. And so in the meantime, while they're waiting for her to make the drive, the police are canvassing the neighborhood where Ryan was found. And one of the neighbors mentions that there was a black motorcycle a few days before the murder, that it's been there, but no one really knew who the owner was. So it wasn't something that was there normally. So Katie arrives to the police department. And again, she has no clue why she's there. And they ask her when was the last time she was at her apartment. And she tells them that it's been a few days because she is leasing her own apartment in Killeen. I'm sorry, in Austin. Yeah, she's now leasing her apartment in Austin because her and Ryan have been having problems. And she tells the detectives that they've been together for 4 years, but the last 5 months have been the worst. So she said that she tells Ryan that, he needs to decide what he wants to do. So basically, she's given him an ultimatum to get better, or for the time being, they're just going to go ahead and take a break.
Well, he had told her that he felt that because she had given him the ultimatum, and he said that he wanted to take the time to really think about what it is that he wants to do before he was to do anything else.
Right, but that was based solely on what Katie was saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so they kind of press her about, why did you guys separate? What was going on there? And she said, well, after his last deployment, he came back with some issues, and he'd been drinking more and going out. And so they tell Katie, we need permission to get back into your apartment. And so right about that time, they tell her, well, we have to tell you that we found a deceased male in the apartment, and we can confirm that it's Ryan. So, of course, she breaks down crying, and she's visibly upset by the news. And the detectives kind of early on, probably about this point, rule Katie out as a suspect just because she was in Austin at the time of the murder. And based on her stature, she couldn't have killed Ryan, is what they say. Like, she's too small to... And plus, he was trained in hand-to-hand combat. So if there had been an altercation, he probably could have taken her out.
And based off of her timing that she had told the police, her alibi seemed pretty clear. Like, whenever I was listening to it, she seemed she was pretty convincing. I was like, yeah, it wasn't her.
Oh,
that was what I thought. I was like, oh yeah, no, she's good.
Look at Chon. Chon's already got his knives out ready to go. So anyway, The detectives are back at the apartment and they're trying to unravel this mystery of who killed Ryan. They do notice that there's no signs of forced entry and the door is locked on the inside. So they're like, well, maybe it's somebody that he knew that he let into his house. And it looks like Ryan was sleeping on the couch when he was attacked. They see a pillow and a blanket on the ground, and they conclude that someone else was in the apartment and was sleeping on the floor. So there was just like this decorative blanket and pillow, kind of like a makeshift pallet.
They had assumed somebody else was on the other couch on the other side of the living room, and
Mm.
that they had fallen asleep due to video games because they did have a
Yeah.
console that was still on.
Yeah, the TV was still on and there was still the game was still going. So, they speak to Ryan's superiors and they say, "Can you think of anybody that would want to hurt Ryan?" And without hesitation, they give the name out of John Valdez, who happens to be the medical platoon sergeant. And Ryan and John served together and became really close friends. So when they talk to the unit um, with the other soldiers, they tell them that they did notice that John Valdez had been acting strange and out of character the past week, and he had gone AWOL. I believe it was on a Saturday, but strangely enough, he showed back up the same day they discovered Ryan's body. So they bring in John Valdez. What's Julia saying? He can throw bows.
Yeah, because he knows how to. He was a hand-to-hand. He was a hand-to-hand
Oh, okay. I was
soldier,
like, what?
like
So,
elbows.
oh, okay, I gotcha. I still was like bows. I was thinking like bows and arrows or something. That's where I was
No,
at.
he can throw some elbows. He can throw some bows.
Yikes. You can tell that how old I am if I'm thinking bows and arrows.
Mother.
Anyway, so of course, with that name being thrown out, they bring John Valdez in, and he's super nonchalant about the whole thing. They were like, you know, Brian, he's like, Roger, you know, their military speak, I guess is what he was saying. So anyway, the detectives are like, where were you Friday and Saturday? You know, because the detectives had been on alert that he'd gone AWOL. He's like, well, yeah, I was partying down in Austin with another soldier, and I believe the soldier's name is Maish.
Private Mesh.
And so him and Maish were down there partying, and um, then he said we ended up staying with Katie Briggs that night at her apartment. And so, of course, that raises a flag. I mean, how do you know Katie Briggs, right? I mean, of all the apartments to stay in Austin, you're staying with Katie Briggs. Weird. But anyway, he quickly clarifies that they are only friends and nothing more, and that he's actually engaged to a girl named Ariana, and that they had met a few months earlier, and Katie had been the one to introduce him, John, and Ariana. So y'all get some pens out, some maps, because this is going to be like, this next part is like super all over the place, okay? So John goes on to tell detectives that they had partied a few months before and that he blacked out apparently. But when he woke up, Katie's telling him that he hooked up with the girl named Ariana and that he even ended up buying her a cheap engagement ring. But John's like, he didn't remember any of it. And Katie was also the one that gave John Ariana's number. So he calls Ariana and they hit it off. And so they decide to pursue the relationship. But this relationship was based on phone conversations because he never ever saw her again. But he was just still talking to his fiance over the phone. So more red flags on that. I hope y'all are caught up with me on this one because it's kind of a little whirlwind there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the detectives are like, let's come back to Ryan now. Now that you've told us all that, he says, are you aware of anybody that would want to hurt Ryan? So John's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he made enemies because of the outbursts that he would have at the club. And they're like, well, tell us more about that. They said Ryan would meet women at the club and have affairs with them, knowing that they were married. And so the detectives are like, oh, so maybe there's like some jealous husbands involved, so now this is kind of widening what's the word I'm looking for? Widening the suspect pool. So if he's known to have affairs, so there's probably, some more people that are angry at him other than this John Valdez that's been named. So John actually never admits that there's bad blood between him and Ryan and says, we're still good friends. And before John leaves for the afternoon, the detectives are like, hey, what kind of vehicle do you drive? And John says, I drive a black motorcycle. Coincidence? Maybe. I mean, there's lots of black motorcycles, right? So anyway, detectives follow up on the tip that John gave them regarding the local bars that Ryan frequented and the affairs that he had. And the soldiers don't confirm any of what John said. In fact, they tell the detectives that it couldn't be any further from the truth. They do confirm that Ryan and John had a falling out. And the issue was that John and Katie had a close relationship that he didn't particularly care for. And Katie had been crying on John's shoulder this whole time. And the other soldiers, also tell detectives that Ryan had been the one who had broken up with Katie because of John and Katie's relationship. I mean, are y'all with me? Have I thoroughly confused everybody? Because like this is like super confusing. So anyway, so all of this to say that it contradicts everything that Katie had said when they initially brought her in, and John is looking more and more like a suspect. So they bring Katie back in. And y'all, you can actually see the interviews of all of these characters in this thing. Anita, I will slow down. Tell me where you're confused and I will break it down for you. I'm going to wait for a second so Anita can tell me where she's confused. I'm waiting,
Yeah, I
Anita.
mean, like, as I say, like the craziest part out of all of this, right?
Don't get ahead of it, though. Don't get ahead
No,
of it.
no, I'm not. I'm like, as based off of where we're at right now.
Okay.
She said she's she said that that she's got her own apartment, right? He
Right.
said that they went clubbing in Austin.
Right.
Basic, like, even if you were to say that he had known Katie for even a couple of months, because they had just gotten back. Now they're out there, living civilian lives, and he gets to go clubbing and go partying. And he's maybe only known Katie a few months, and now he's staying the night with her. And especially with Private Mage, like, because he was there.
Right.
And I'm just like, now you don't know these guys, and they're staying with you while your boyfriend's off in Colleen. Just
Well, Anita, no one's dating Katie. Katie is currently single, according to Katie. She's currently single, and her and Ryan are only on a break. Okay. So let's get back to this. They contradict what Katie had said is, it's contradicting. They bring her back in and they ask her why she lied about her and Ryan being broken up. So her pathetic excuse for lying, yet again, is that she was embarrassed about the state of her relationship. Listen here. Ryan is dead and you're embarrassed about the state of your relationship? I mean, that just speaks volumes, I feel, about you. Anyway, she goes on to tell detectives that Ryan had admitted to having an affair, but they were waiting on DNA results because one of his affairs had resulted in a pregnancy. And the girl's name is Jordan. And if we couldn't get any more of this twisted, Jordan happens to be the sister of Ariana, who is
who was the
John
fiance?
Valdez's fiance. Okay? I mean,
What are the odds?
what are the odds? What are the odds? So let me see if I can summarize to what we've said so far. It's a
I can
cluster.
help.
It's a freaking cluster. Okay. So you have Ryan and Katie who are in a relationship
And who have recently separated.
and they're recently separated.
Hmm.
And then you have
John
John
Valdez
Valdez, who's a
and,
friend,
Private Maish, who was
right?
also
And
second,
Private
who was
Maish.
Private Maish, who was the lowest rank in their platoon, and he has no relation to anybody.
This is
But
an
with
accurate little
yeah,
comment right here.
oh yeah, with
Holy
with
guacamole.
with Medical Sergeant Valdez is his fiance, Ariana, and then now recently introduced into the story was his sister Jordan, or was her sister Jordan,
Ariana's
who
sister Jordan.
which by all of you might know now, Valdez Valdez and Maish have yet to meet because of a recent blackout at a club the night prior. But he
I
doesn't
think
remember.
I think we've just completely made it even worse. Look at Julia. Julia, she could not be any more confused. So anyway, okay,
Yeah.
so let's go back to this. Ryan is deceased. Katie is lying about everything, just like how the relationship started. And the detectives are asking Katie, "Do you have Ariana's phone number?" And she's like, "Yes, I do." So she gives the phone number, and detectives try calling Ariana, and Ariana never answers. They go looking for Ariana at the apartment complex that John Valdez has told them that Ariana lives, and they can't find her. There is no evidence that Ariana actually exists. So, where does this pick up, Alex? At what point does John Valdez get arrested?
John has recently been arrested because a certain someone has called and given them a tip based off of what has recently happened within the past 3 days, I believe. And the
Yes.
person who called happened to be First Private Maish, who
Okay.
had. Sorry, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, so Maish calls in a tip unbeknownst to anybody at this point, because he calls
Mhm.
I think he calls in anonymously, I think. And he
Yes.
says, "Hey, I believe that John Valdez had something to do with this murder."
Well, he
So,
calls and says, "I believe I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be, and I just don't want to be." He said, "I just want to clear myself." Basically, that's what he said. And he's called and he said that he was actually, I don't know if we're at this part yet, but he had called
go
and he
for it.
said that he has witnessed actually who did it, and that he had been at the apartment with Sergeant, and I call him Sully, Sergeant Sully, which would be Ryan Sullivan, or not Ryan Sullivan, yeah, right,
Mhm.
Ryan Sullivan.
Yeah.
I put it in my notes as Sully. Sergeant Sully, who is now dead, he had told the police he knows who did it and he had seen who had done it, but he wasn't a part of it. He was just there whenever he was with them. And can I go to the
Yeah,
parts a
keep
little bit?
going. Look,
Okay.
but Anita, I see your question. I'm not going to answer it just yet, though. Hold on.
I
Hold on to
I
that thought.
will answer that in just a second. It's actually kind of ties in. So he tells the police, Sergeant or Private Maish calls and tells the police. He says, "I know who did it. He was masked. He stabbed Sergeant Sully 34 times in his sleep." And then he takes off his mask, only lo and behold for it to be Sergeant Valdez.
So Maish was the one that was sleeping
Mm-hmm.
on the couch.
Where they had from the earlier scene where they're talking about there had Sully was asleep on the couch, and there was a decorative pillow and blanket on the other couch across the living room.
Right.
There had been evidence of somebody else being in there at the time, whereas there's only one dead person in there because the second person happened to be Private Maish, who witnessed the murder happen. And then the police find Sergeant Sully, or not Sergeant Sully, please find Sergeant Valdez, and they take him into custody based off of the actions of him murdering Sergeant Sully, and they had also taken in Mage for being an accomplice.
So they decide once he's in jail that they're going to tape his phone calls. And the only person that calls Sergeant Valdez is Ariana. And what was really weird when detectives were listening to these phone calls was that Ariana almost spoke like a baby. Like she did a lot of baby talk to Valdez. And at
Well,
this point, go ahead.
they're recording his calls because they were like, well, who could have wanted him dead? Who would have hired a soldier to kill another soldier? So they're thinking maybe it was a government official, maybe it was a representative of the House, maybe it was a Pentagon agent
Yeah.
or something like that. He said an agent of the Pentagon. And so they're like, maybe we'll get a call, they'll get a tip, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it was a government agent, maybe it was a government. No, but nobody ever called other than his fiance Ariana, who has now been described as talking like a baby over the phone.
Right. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of suspicious. Like it could, because they even said, right, that it was like she was trying to cover up her voice or something.
As if she wasn't trying to be recognized, or maybe her voice had been, maybe she didn't want to be known completely who she was.
Okay. So at what point does Katie get brought in?
Katie gets brought in right after they figure out. So during all of this interviewing stuff prior, Ariana was nowhere to be found. Nobody had heard Ariana since her name had been brought up since the interviews. They called her multiple times. They tried to find her. She hadn't been found. Now she somehow knows that this guy is in jail, figures out how to call him, and is speaking to him multiple times. So what they
She's probably
do is
putting money on his books too.
yeah, probably. She has, the detectives have thought, well, maybe something doesn't seem right here. They go and investigate the house or the hotel in which
Valdez was
no,
staying.
actually, no, we're just a little bit ahead of that. Right before that, they were actually investigating Katie's car
Financials.
because, yeah, her financial records were pretty sus, and they went to go check her car, and in her vehicle she had 2 cell phones, one of which they had assumed was hers, and the other one they didn't know why she had a second one. She didn't have she didn't have a on-call job. She was a data enter. She was a part of data entry, so she didn't need to go on call. So they called the number in which they assumed would be Ariana's, and they called, and that phone rings from the inside of the car.
So this has cleared up that obviously, Anita, Ariana was made up. And Ariana was made up by Katie. And so if Ariana was made up, then so was Jordan, because Jordan was Ariana's sister.
Meaning that every bad
And
thing has been said about Sully so far, it has been wrong. He wasn't violent. He wasn't having an affair, and there is no Ariana.
right. And like Anita said, Katie is Ariana.
Mm-hmm.
Katie
Mm-hmm.
is Jordan. And Katie, more than likely, wanted to have a relationship with Valdez.
Mm-hmm.
So going back just a titch, they are looking through Katie's financials and notice that there's a withdrawal for $4,500. So they look at the hotel
Right, that's
where
where we were.
Valdez was staying at, and they find a sum of $4,500 in his room.
In an envelope from Bank of America, which happened to be the bank that Katie is a part of. And she has a withdrawal for $4,500, which now Valdez has $4,500 cash in a Bank of America envelope in his jacket.
Right. And where did Katie get this money from? I'll
Yeah.
tell you. This money came from the life insurance that soldiers get when they are killed. So she actually received, I believe,
$100,000.
$100,000.
Every soldier who is enlisted automatically gets a $400,000 life claim, and she was still one of the beneficiaries post breakup, which
Right.
means she had also lied about the breakup as well, because he was, or unless they had broke. Actually, I was kind of confused at
I
that
think
part.
he no, I think he listed her as a beneficiary to receive that 100,000 because I think his family got the rest of it.
Well, no, that's what I was saying. Like he had put the 300,000 to go to the rest of his family. 100,000 was to her. Had they, this is where I was kind of confused, because she said that they had broken up, but she was still a beneficiary, either meaning he was going to change her name and her window was closing, like they said on the documentary,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
or they were still together, and all of this happened, like his murder happened unbeknownst to a breakup and anything else like that. Like he had been killed on the spot and she remained a solid beneficiary. But the way the documentary explains it was that he was going to be removing her very soon, and that her
Sean,
window came. Yeah.
yes. John Valdez and money was the motive. Agreed.
Yeah.
Right there. So yes, so she of course you can't change the beneficiary, even though here's a life insurance lesson for you. Um when you purchase life insurance, you name your beneficiaries. At any point in time, you are able to update them after you're deceased, even though you are no longer in a relationship with that person, and that person probably should not get your money, but because you didn't change it, that person will still get your money.
Mhm.
So even though they were broken up, he would have had to have changed the beneficiary.
Another crazy part about that claim was that, not even, I mean, it was probably like to the hour, the day after he died, the 100,000 was deposited because she had already made that claim.
Yeah. And
She
yes,
got.
Anita, Katie is psycho.
Mhm.
Katie was psycho from the word go. Had Sergeant Sullivan run in the opposite direction, he might have still been with us. But she unalived him because she wanted to be with that freaking John Valdez. And so she basically masterminded the whole thing. But here's how she did it. Here's what she did. She would cry to John and tell John that Ryan was beating her, was cheating on her, was emotionally, physically abusive. And then to play it up, she also um, brought Ariana into this as being a recipient of the emotional abuse from Ryan as well. So John is just sitting there getting all sorts of information, inaccurate information. And so he's just sitting there stewing and trying to figure out how he's going to get back at him for everything, all the pain that he's causing.
Which one shows how good of a brother in arms he was. Like, they're best friends. You go on multiple tours together, and then you come back and you fall in love with this girl who, one, you've never met. Listen to information from a girl you've known for maybe 4 or 5 months at the most, and then the way they explained it in the documentary was that yeah, I would have booked it, Dookies. Um, the way the documentary explains it was that, not that he was in love with her, more that he had a big brother relationship to her, that he felt protective over Katie, and that because Ariana was receiving some of this emotional abuse, that he had to do something about his fiance too,
Yeah.
and this is
And
fueling him.
yeah, all of her lies that she was telling was fueling John Valdez to act against Ryan, who clearly, by all accounts, did not deserve to die in the manner that he did.
Mhm.
So, guys, I'm telling you, season 26, episode 1 of Snapped. I can tell you right now, Alex and I did not do this show justice, but you guys need to watch it. I mean, when I have watched this, and I have told everybody, y'all need to watch this because it is whack how people can lie and manipulate. And they were both Katie and John were both convicted, and so was Maish. They were all convicted on
And
already currently.
Mish was convicted based off of being an accomplice, and he wasn't helping disposal, but John
He
Valdez, once he had witnessed Valdez murder him, Mish had sent him off. He was like, "Go, you need to get out of here." But due to a guilty conscience, I'm sure he called in and told everybody. Also, the another motive was for money, because she had told Valdez, "You kill him for me, I'll pay you half of his life insurance. We'll split it together." And I guess Valdez told Maish, oh, that's he did. He did. He told Maish, "If you help
he would
me,
give him
you
some
help me."
money, right?
Yeah, he said I will split my cash with you, right? So he said, "If you help me with this, if you help me end this, I will give you some of this money." And they asked Maish while they're interviewing him. He's like, "What was this to you? Was it personal? What was it?" He's like, "I just needed money. I wanted it for the money." And he wasn't. I mean, that was the plan. Why? That was another thing. Another fills in a gap. Why Maish happened to be with Sergeant Sully that night was because the night before, Valdez had texted Maish and said, "Take him out to the Starlight Club where we're going to be, and get him as drunk as you possibly can so he can pass out and he won't wake up while I'm there." Whenever they get back from the club,
Oh,
he
that's right.
lays down. He lays down, and how he
Valdez
was
comes
Valdez
out of
was
the closet or
already,
something.
yeah, Valdez was hidden in the other room in the house. The only person who could have let him in, which makes her an accomplice as well, would have been Katie, because Katie has a key. And there's no forced entry, follows that part of the rule. He was stabbed in the house, and Maish had Maish not called, I think they would have probably gotten a little bit farther and a little bit away from this,
Yeah, I
because they
agree.
had the investigators were saying, like, we were running in circles and we had no idea. Nobody had told us anything. And Maish was like, I don't feel like I'm doing something right. I just want to clear my conscience, basically. That's what he was saying.
And for that, I am grateful that Maish cleared his conscience. I mean, he shouldn't have been there. I don't It doesn't matter what amount of money someone gives you, you don't take a life away. And Katie Briggs, I mean, what an awful, despicable human being. I mean, she took a brother, a son, a grandson, who by all accounts was a really good guy, and all because she wanted to be with somebody else. And my thing with that is she started that relationship with Ariana. I feel like she started that deception of a relationship because she eventually wanted to move into the role of Ariana. That's how I feel. That's where she was going next with that.
My head for guy think, I guess. I don't think it was more of the relationship. I think it was more for the money, because she kind of seemed like the dependopotamus type, you know?
But she had her own job. Typically, dependopotamuses don't
They are
work.
stay at home. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, even then, like, you could be have a good job, but extra bank is extra bank.
No, because I think she was willing to give it all away for to murder him. I'm like, my thing is like, why don't you just break up with him? Why don't you just leave?
Yeah,
Why have to kill him? I don't understand that. Like, you
you'll never
already had
understand
leased
the
your
mind of
apartment.
psychopaths.
He had already dumped you because you're crazy. I don't know. Guys, ask me questions. See what you guys think about this. Does anybody even watch this? Have we intrigued you enough to watch this show?
Ask
Because
questions so we can fill in gaps, because I'm sure we're missing parts.
I'm sure we are, but
For those of you who want to see my notes, I don't know what my language parameters on here. I'll blank out that word.
it's fine.
But
Everybody knows.
like, I had very light notes, but I remember the whole thing. I was watching it during work. I was sitting in my office. Oh, he did get a Bronze Star. It was awarded to his family, and the a terrorism medal. I didn't quite read that correctly, I don't think, but he received a medal, and it was sent to his family. Um, I mean, I just think it was crazy. Like, had it they had to have gotten him in his sleep because they knew how good of a soldier he was. I thought that was crazy. Like, you're the top of your
It was
unit, you
it was
rank so
cowardice.
fast.
It
Yeah.
was just cowardice. So how they did it, how they did that. Oh, look. So Shauna says, I'm definitely going to watch this. Joe said, this is why I can't watch a show. I can't keep up with all the names and who is real and who is whatever, Joe. Whatever. And Julie says, how do I get a pin?
Pen, Pen.
So anyway, yeah, Joe, you know what? This show was super confusing just because you have psycho people that make up other people that don't exist. So Anita says, how in the world did a girl who wasn't even pretty, was short and stocky, manage to manipulate these two men to kill their buddy? So here's the deal. I don't think that what am I trying to say? I
Money.
don't think that
That
I
was
don't
my
think
thing.
that her physical appearance had anything to do with it. She had, I don't know, I always feel like a personality overrides a whole lot of things. But she was very manipulative. I mean, she manipulated him into thinking that she was a model, and I'm sure she said all the right things to somebody
Oh,
that was lonely and hadn't probably been with a woman in a long time because he was deployed. But I just don't know how she manipulated. Well, I mean, I know how she did. She basically made him mad at her and said he's doing all these things to me, which was not true.
yeah,
And
I mean, my biggest thing was I was saying is like I think the motivation for most of them was money. Because Mage admits right outright, he's like, it was for the money. He said, I just wanted money.
And
And
so Sylvia's
yeah,
asking, did John meet Katie while Ryan was deployed? So Ryan and John were deployed together and they became really good friends. And so he introduced John to Katie when they came back from deployment. Shauna says, I need a pen.
now
Julia said,
you're in the
that's what I
zone.
meant. Oh, Sean, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Knapp is on here. He woke up in time to watch. And Julia says, never underestimate anyone. It's true. And I'm going to tell you this, men and women, you know what? This is a good time for a PSA because
Mhm.
there are lots of lonely women and men on the internet. And there's a lot of people that would take advantage of that. And they will say, well, I'm a US soldier looking for a good woman. And they go into this giant spiel and then you start sending them money. Okay. Not good. If they tell you that they're models, just click and run. They're not models. They're not. It's just what it is. I need that. Oh my gosh. Did I ask enough questions to win the trip? I need that. When I see you, I'm going to trip you. That's the trip you're going to win. And Joe,
The
you're right. You are so right,
Yep.
Joe.
Hmm.
But, and I don't know what head women think with, but they don't. Okay, I'm going to say it. Katie is a bitch. She is. That's just how I feel about her.
You want to talk about manipulative men and women, or women who are lonely and men who are lonely? Take, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 hours out of your day and watch the show on TLC, 90 Day Fiance, and look for a guy. Oh shoot, I cannot remember his name. He was a black guy, and he had met this Russian woman. Of course, she's Russian. He met her on this chat site. You got to pay to talk to these women for at least you got to pay time an hour and stuff like this, right? He goes through 5 years of talking to this woman on this site, finally gets her number and her social media, talks to her through that, and he says that he spent in the uppers of like $200,000 to $300,000 that he sent to her. Grandma needed surgery. She needed to get to
Oh,
another
and it was
state.
probably a man.
No, well, so here's the thing. This was the crazy part. He pays for plane tickets to go to Mexico on a honeymoon/retreat for the both of them, and she blows him off. Like, she doesn't show. She doesn't come. She's like, I can't. My grandma's still in Russia. I can't leave her here. Another 2 years goes on. He's spending more money on her.
Was this on Dr.
Continually being.
Phil?
No, this was 90 Day Fiance. I don't
Oh,
know if it
okay.
was
Okay.
though.
You said
But
that.
like I said, like, he meets her finally. She's actually real, but she's not the same woman. Like, it's not her, and it's. it's if I'm telling you, like there are desperate men and women out there who are.
Okay, real quick, let me tell you about a Dr. Phil episode. There's this lady who is she works for Homeland Security, and she was duped into thinking that she is married to Tyler Perry, and like so far as the like she goes so far as to sending him money to fix a light bulb on his airplane, and Dr. Phil's like, look, he doesn't need your money to fix a light bulb on your airplane. And they even have Tyler Perry send her a message like, hey, we're not married. You and I don't have a kid together. They've never met, but she has Tyler Perry's son. I mean, whoever this person is scamming her. Her daughters are trying to tell her, hey, you're not married to this guy. Anyway, that's another really good episode. It just blows your mind, seriously. But anyway, guys, I want y'all to watch this episode, and I want y'all to talk to me about it because it's seriously mind blowing. Joe, can you watch it and then tell me what you think? And just in case you didn't catch it, I'm going to put it in the comments. It's Snapped. It is season 26, episode 1. I promise y'all are going to love it. The twists and turns on this are just amazing.
And like the way
Hey,
that
Brenda.
idea. Like how she manages to keep up these lies and like how much time she's got, like kind of made me wonder how she even had a job. And she's not only manipulated one soldier, she manipulated another into thinking he got impromptu marriage during a blackout, somehow brings her sister, or her estranged sister, into this, who apparently her boyfriend that she had already broken up with, by the way. Why she's mad about it, even though they just broke up, and he got this woman pregnant. I'm like, I don't know. Like sometimes her stories didn't make sense. Other times her, like,
I would have loved to have seen her psych eval. I want to know what's going on in her head.
yeah, because
but
they
anyway.
did do a polygraph. They did polygraph Maish, and Maish actually, he passed because he was telling the truth whenever he was talking about what happened and who did what and who killed who. But I would love to have seen her.
I just want to see her psych evaluation and see what's going on up in that head, because girl is whack. But anyway, guys, okay, we've reached our time. I will do everybody that commented, I wrote your name down in my handy dandy Golden Girls pad. Can you see that? So all these names are going, it's Anita, it's on Hulu. It's on Hulu. That's where you'll catch it. Alex, where did you watch it?
Yeah, I was about to say, if you do not have Hulu Live TV, because you have to have the Live TV version to watch that episode. If you do not have it and you have $2, you can go on YouTube. Just look up Snapped Katie Briggs. I will show you that I have it. It's $2, and you can.
You did find it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I have it. I have YouTube Premium, but it shows a little different. It's Snapped right there, and that episode is the one that I had purchased. Season 26, Catherine Briggs.
Oh, Catherine Briggs. Is it Catherine with the K?
Yeah, Kathryn.
Okay.
Briggs, and it's just $2 on YouTube, and you can keep that episode, and it's yours.
Rain, I happen to like my notepad too. Thank you. Anyway, guys, I enjoyed talking about this. I enjoyed thoroughly confusing you. And remember, if you want to be a guest on my show, please holler at me, and I will do. I'll do a video for the pen giveaway. And thank you for everybody that watched tonight. If you have a show that you want me to watch and you want to talk about it, just send it my way. Alex, I love you, kid. Thanks for being on today. And remember, let's keep talking shit. Oh, no, wait, she. Good night, everybody.
Buy some merch.